All right, 10 out of 10 is the grade that Donald Trump gives the federal government for its Puerto Rico response. Many Puerto Ricans would disagree with Mr. Trump's perfect 10 rating. We've seen it in our reporting on the ground. Our next guest, I am willing to bet, does as well. Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu is joining us from California. Thanks for being with us. How do you think the federal government has done in Puerto Rico? Do you think Donald Trump is right when he says it deserves a 10 out of 10?
Absolutely not. Thank you, Hala, for your question. The president is entitled to his own opinions of himself, but not to his own facts. And the facts are that about a third of U.S. citizens in Puerto Rico still can't get safe drinking water. You still have a majority of U.S. citizens who don't have electricity. You have the USS Comfort Navy ship there that can have 250 beds for patients, of which only about 30 some are filled because they don't know how to get patients there. It is definitely not a 10.
But why do you think that is, then? You think there isn't the will, or do you think there isn't the competence, or what's going on, then? Do you think if this had been a mainland state in America and not an overseas territory, that the response would have been different?
I do, because it was different. If you look at what happened in Texas and Florida, the response was much more immediate. In Puerto Rico, the president had a delayed and weak response. And if you just look at the timeline, he was tweeting a lot about the NFL at the time that U.S. citizens in Puerto Rico were suffering. This was in a critical few days right after the hurricane struck. So the facts are that there are a lot of people still suffering in Puerto Rico, and we need the Trump administration to focus and do a much better job there.
Okay, let's talk about, we were just hearing from John Kelly, the chief of staff, discussing that controversy surrounding the president's phone call to a Gold Star widow. But before we get to that, I've seen you tweet about it. We've heard some Democratic lawmakers bring this up, and that is the death of those 4 American service members in Niger. You're saying that there are still questions out there. What are those questions?
So I think it's important to know that there are 4 service members that sacrificed their lives. I don't know what the president said or didn't say to their families, but I do know that one of the best ways to honor their sacrifice is for the Trump administration to explain to the American people what happened in that ambush. Why is it that there wasn't more support? Why do we have to rely on the French military to bail us out? And are there steps we can take in the future to prevent these deaths from happening again?
And John McCain, the U.S. Senator from Arizona, believes that the lack of Niger answers may require subpoenas. Do you think it should get to that level of inquiry?
I hope it doesn't, but it's been over 2 weeks, and the Trump administration still doesn't seem to have the facts about what happened in Niger. And we need to know, if we're going to have U.S. troops in these countries, why they're there, how are they being protected, and are we doing all we can to make sure that we don't have deaths that perhaps could have been prevented.
I know that a lot of Americans probably didn't know that there was some U.S. military presence in Niger and other countries where there is ISIS and al-Qaeda presence. As I mentioned, the Chief of Staff, John Kelly, this is his 2nd appearance in the briefing room in I think as many weeks. So he discussed the controversy and some of the criticism aimed at Donald Trump for his phone call to a Gold Star widow, the widow of LaDavid Johnson. This is what he had to say about that. Listen.
Understand, there's tens of thousands of American kids, mostly, doing the nation's bidding all around the world. They don't have to be in uniform. You know, when I was a kid, every man in my life was a veteran. World War II, Korea, and there was the draft. These young people today, they don't do it for any other reason than their selfless sense of selfless devotion to this great nation. We don't look down upon those of you that haven't served. In fact, in a way, we're a little bit sorry, because you'll never have experienced the wonderful joy you get in your heart when you do the kind of things our servicemen and women do.
All right. He says he doesn't look down on people who haven't served. That would include the President of the United States, who didn't serve in the military either. But one of the things he said is that he was stunned that anybody would criticize the president's phone call to the widow of LaDavid Johnson. How do you respond to that?
Right. So I wasn't on that call. I don't know what was said or what wasn't said. But General Kelly is right. We do have a lot of military members serving around the world. I was on active duty with the U.S. Air Force. I'm very aware that we do a lot of missions in our amazing military. But when something goes wrong, like in Niger, then the Trump administration does need to explain what happened. And I hope that in the future that the president can do a better job of making sure we don't have stories like this that turn into what looks like a crisis. But we do need to know the facts about what happened in Niger and to make sure we try not to have those things happen again.
Well, we're many more people today than just a few weeks ago are asking some of those questions. Ted Lieu, a U.S. House member from the Democratic Party, thanks for being with us. We really appreciate it on CNN.